Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel. I'm so happy you're here today. My name is Huba, and this is our English Learning Podcast.
And I'm Olivia. Hi. We're so glad you joined us. Huba, how are you doing today? You look a little tired, but also excited at the same time.
Ha, yeah, you're right. I stayed up a little late last night because I was reading about our topic for today. I just couldn't stop. It's such a big, important topic. I kept reading, and before I knew it, it was midnight.
Oh, wow. Midnight. That means this topic must be really interesting, right? So, for all our viewers, welcome. Whether you're watching us for the first time or you've been here before, thank you so much. We really appreciate every single one of you.
Yes, and today we have a very, very big topic. It's not easy, it's not simple, but we are going to explain it in a very simple way. We're going to use easy English, easy words, and lots of examples. So don't worry, you don't need to be a history expert. You just need to sit back, relax, and listen.
That's right. And Huba, before we start, can you just tell people what is our topic today?
Of course. Today, we are talking about the history behind the Iran and Israel conflict. This is the story of two countries, Iran and Israel. These are two countries in the Middle East, and they have a very, very complicated history. They used to be friends, and now they are not friends at all. Actually, they're enemies, and we're going to explain how that happened. Why did it happen? When did it start? And what is happening today?
Yes, and I think what makes this topic really interesting is that it's not just about two countries. It's about religion, it's about politics, it's about land, it's about power. There are so many layers, but we're going to take it one step at a time, nice and slow, easy and clear.
Exactly. One step at a time. That's how we learn, right? So, Olivia, let's start from the very beginning. I mean, the very beginning.
Yes, let's do it.
Okay, so first things first. Let's talk about where these two countries are, because I think a lot of people know the names, Iran, Israel, but they might not know exactly where they are on the map.
That's a great point, Huba. So both countries are in a part of the world called the Middle East. Now, the Middle East is a region. It's not one country. It's a big area that includes many countries. Countries like Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Iraq, Turkey, Syria. All of these are in the Middle East.
Right. And Israel is a small country. It's actually very small. If you look at a map, Israel is about the size of, well, it's a little bigger than the state of New Jersey in the United States. It's tiny, but it's a very important country.
Exactly. And Israel is on the eastern coast of the Mediterranean Sea. It is next to countries like Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, and Egypt. And Israel has a very, very long and important history. It is the birthplace of Judaism and Christianity, so it's a very holy land for many people.
Now, Iran is different. Iran is a big country. Iran is much, much bigger than Israel. Iran is in the northeastern part of the Middle East. Its neighbors are countries like Iraq, Turkey, Pakistan, and Afghanistan. And Iran has a very long history too, thousands of years of history. Iran used to be called Persia. Did you know that?
Oh yes, the Persian Empire. That is one of the oldest and most famous empires in history. I remember when I first learned about this in school, I was so surprised. The Persian Empire was huge. It covered a giant area of land, from parts of Europe all the way to parts of India. It was really powerful.
Exactly. And Persian culture, the art, the food, the poetry, the language, it's just incredible. Iran has a really rich, deep culture. So when we talk about Iran and Israel, we're talking about two very ancient, very important countries.
Now, one important thing to know, the official language of Iran is Persian or Farsi, and the official language of Israel is Hebrew. These are two very different languages, and the people are different too. Most people in Iran are Muslim, most people in Israel are Jewish, and those two religions, Islam and Judaism, they have a complicated relationship, especially in this part of the world.
That's a really important point, Olivia. Religion plays a big role in this conflict. We'll talk more about that later. But first, let's talk about something that might surprise people. Did you know that Iran and Israel were actually friends before?
Yes, and I think this is the most surprising part of this whole story. When I first learned this, I was like, wait, what? they were friends? Because today, when you see the news, you see Iran and Israel talking about each other in very negative ways. But it was not always like this.
No, it was not always like this. So let's go back in time. Let's go back to 1948, 1950s, and 1960s. Let me tell you what was happening back then. Okay, so let's go back to 1948. This is a very, very important year. This is the year that Israel became a country. Before 1948, there was no country called Israel. There was a place called Palestine, which was controlled by the British at the time.
And this is already complicated, right? Because there were Jewish people living there and there were Arab Palestinian people living there, and they both wanted the land. And in 1948, the UN, that's the big international organization, they made a plan to divide the land. Part of it would be for a Jewish state, and part of it would be for a Palestinian state.
And in May 1948, Israel declared independence. Jewish leaders said, "This is now the state of Israel." And Jewish people from all over the world, people who had been living in Europe, in America, in many places, many of them moved to Israel. This was very emotional for many Jewish people because they had been waiting for this for a very, very long time.
But it was not happy for everyone. Arab countries around Israel, Egypt, Syria, Jordan, Iraq, they did not accept this. They went to war against the new country of Israel. This was the first Arab-Israeli war in 1948.
Now, here's the interesting part about Iran. Iran is a Muslim country, and many Muslim countries were against Israel. But Iran at that time was different. Iran did not join the war. Iran actually recognized Israel, which means Iran officially said, okay, Israel is a real country. Iran was the second Muslim country to do this.
Right. And why? Because the leader of Iran at that time was different from the leaders in the Arab countries. The leader was the Shah. That's the Persian word for king. His name was Mohammad Reza Shah Pahlavi, and the Shah had a very pro-Western attitude. He wanted Iran to be modern. He wanted Iran to be like Western countries, like the United States and Europe.
And the Shah had a good relationship with the United States, and the United States had a good relationship with Israel. So Iran, the US, and Israel, they were all in the same group in a way. They were all friendly with each other.
That's a good way to explain it, Huba. It's like in school, you know? If your friend has another friend, you probably become friends with that person too, or at least you get along with them. That's kind of what was happening here with these countries.
Exactly. That's a great analogy, Olivia. So in the 1950s and 1960s, Iran and Israel had a really good relationship. They worked together on many things. Iranian oil, which is a very valuable resource, was sent to Israel. Israeli engineers and farmers came to Iran to teach Iranians new farming techniques. There was a lot of cooperation.
I think one of the most interesting things I read was about the Israeli intelligence service. That's called Mossad. The Mossad and the Iranian Savak, which was the Iranian Secret Service, they worked together. They trained together, they shared information. Isn't that incredible? Because today, these two organizations are completely against each other.
It really is incredible. And, you know, I have a personal connection to this idea of things changing. Let me tell you a little story.
Oh, I love your stories, Huba. Tell us.
So, I had a neighbor when I was growing up. And when I first met him, he and his brother were best friends. They did everything together. They were inseparable. But then, one day, there was an argument. I don't even know what it was about. And after that argument, they stopped talking. Completely. For years, they didn't speak. And I thought, how does that happen? How do you go from being best friends to not speaking at all? And when I learned about Iran and Israel, I thought, it's kind of like that neighbor story. You can go from being close to being enemies. And it usually happens because of one big event or one big change.
That's such a good story, Huba. And you're right. The big change for Iran and Israel was a huge event. It's called the Iranian Revolution, and that happened in 1979. So let's talk about that, because that is really the turning point in this whole story.
Okay, 1979. This is a very, very important year. Some historians call it one of the most important years in the 20th century, and I think they're right, because what happened in 1979 in Iran changed the whole region, not just for Iran, but for the entire Middle East and even for the whole world.
So let's explain. By the 1970s, many people in Iran were unhappy with the Shah. Remember, the Shah was the king, and the Shah was very close to the United States, and many Iranians felt that the Shah was too Western. They felt that he was ignoring Iranian culture, ignoring Islamic values, and there were also many poor people in Iran who were suffering, while the Shah and his family were living in great luxury.
That's right. And there was also a lot of political repression. The Shah's secret police, the Savak, was very feared. People who spoke against the Shah could be arrested, tortured, or even killed. So there was a lot of anger and frustration building up in the Iranian population.
And there was one man who became the symbol of this opposition, this resistance. His name was Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini. Now, Ayatollah is a title in Islam. It means a very high-ranking religious leader. And Khomeini was a very powerful speaker. He had been living in exile, which means he was forced to leave Iran, but he was sending messages back to Iran, telling people to rise up against the Shah.
And in 1978 and 1979, there were massive protests. Millions of people went into the streets. The Shah tried to stop the protests, but he couldn't. And in January 1979, the Shah left Iran. He went into exile. He never came back. And then, in February 1979, Ayatollah Khomeini returned to Iran, and the crowd that welcomed him, they say it was millions of people. It was one of the biggest crowds in history.
Can you imagine millions of people all in the streets, all celebrating? I can barely imagine what that looked like. It must have been incredible. But also a little scary, right? Because when everything changes so fast, it's hard to know what comes next.
Exactly. And what came next was a very big change. Iran became an Islamic republic. This is a type of government where Islamic law, called Sharia, is the basis of the government. So religion and politics became completely mixed together in Iran. Khomeini became the supreme leader, the most powerful person in the country. Not a king, not a president, but a religious leader who had political power.
And this is where Israel comes in, because Khomeini had very strong views about Israel. He did not accept Israel as a country. He called Israel a, quote, well, he used very strong language. He called it an illegitimate state. He said that Israel should not exist, and he said that Palestine should be free, and that the Palestinian people should get their land back.
Yes, and very quickly, the relationship between Iran and Israel changed completely. The new Iranian government cut off all diplomatic ties with Israel. That means there were no more ambassadors, no more official communication, nothing. The Israeli embassy in Tehran, that's the capital of Iran, was closed, and it was given to the Palestine Liberation Organization instead.
Wow, just imagine that. One day, there's an Israeli flag flying over that building in Tehran, and the next day, there's a Palestinian flag. That is such a powerful symbol of how completely things changed.
It really is. And not only that, Khomeini created a special day called Quds Day. Quds is the Arabic and Persian name for Jerusalem, and on this day, every year on the last Friday of the Muslim holy month of Ramadan, Iranians and other Muslims around the world were encouraged to march and protest against Israel and show support for Palestine.
And that day is still observed today. Every year there are marches in many Muslim countries. So you can see this became something very, very deep in Iranian culture and politics.
Absolutely. Now, let me tell you something personal here. I have a friend, his family is from Iran, and his parents left Iran just before the revolution. They came to the United States. And he told me something that really stayed with me. He said his father remembers when Jewish Iranian people and Muslim Iranian people lived in the same neighborhoods in Tehran. They were neighbors. They went to the same schools. Some of them were even friends. And then after the revolution, everything changed. Jewish people started to leave Iran because they felt unsafe, and many of them came to the United States or went to Israel. And his father said, it was so sad to watch neighbors become strangers.
Oh, that's so moving, because that's the human side of the story, isn't it? When countries fight, it's real people who are affected, real families, real friendships. This is not just politics on paper, this is real human lives.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that. So after the revolution in 1979, Iran and Israel became enemies. But the conflict didn't stop there. It grew bigger and bigger over the next decades. Let's talk about the 1980s.
Okay, the 1980s. This decade was very turbulent for Iran. In September 1980, just 1 year after the Islamic Revolution, Iraq invaded Iran. This started the Iran-Iraq War, and this was a terrible, terrible war. It lasted 8 years, from 1980 to 1988. It was one of the longest and deadliest wars of the 20th century.
Can you imagine 8 years of war? Over 1 million people died. Many soldiers were teenagers, some even younger. There was chemical warfare. It was horrible. And while this was happening, Iran was also isolated from much of the world. Many Western countries and Arab countries supported Iraq in this war, not Iran.
Now, here is one very strange and complicated thing that happened during this time. You know how I said Iran and Israel were now enemies? Well, even though they were enemies, Israel secretly sold weapons to Iran during the Iran-Iraq War. Isn't that crazy?
Wait, really? Even though they were enemies?
Yes, it's true. This is one of the most bizarre facts about this conflict. Israel sold weapons to Iran because, here's the logic, Israel actually preferred Iran to Iraq at that time. Why? Because Iraq's leader was Saddam Hussein, and Saddam Hussein was actually more dangerous to Israel in some ways. So Israel thought better to help Iran fight Iraq, and also there were still some Jewish people living in Iran, and Israel hoped that by helping Iran, maybe Iran would treat those Jewish people better.
Wow, that is so complicated. It's like enemy of my enemy is my friend, right? That expression?
Exactly. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. That's exactly the logic. International politics is very complex. Countries don't always do what makes simple sense. They do what they think is best for their interests.
This is actually really important for English learners too, because when you read about world news, you'll see this kind of complicated logic all the time. Two countries that don't like each other might still cooperate on certain things. It's not black and white. It's very gray.
That's a great teaching moment, Huba. Now, after the Iran-Iraq War ended in 1988, Iran came out of it changed. Iran was exhausted. The country had been at war for 8 years. The economy was damaged, but Ayatollah Khomeini, who had led Iran through all of this, he died in 1989, and a new supreme leader took over, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. And Khamenei has been the supreme leader of Iran ever since. That's over 35 years.
35 years. That is a very long time for one person to lead a country. And throughout all of those years, Iran's position on Israel has never changed. Iran still does not recognize Israel. Iran still calls for the end of the Israeli state. And this has made the conflict deeper and deeper over time.
And in the 1990s and 2000s, Iran started to build up its military power in new ways. Iran began to support what are called proxy groups. Now, let me explain what proxy means, because it's an important word.
Yes, please explain that. I remember the first time I heard that word, I had no idea what it meant.
So a proxy is like a replacement or a substitute. In war and politics, a proxy group or proxy army is a group that fights on behalf of another country, without that country officially being in the war. So instead of Iran sending its own soldiers to fight Israel directly, Iran gives money, weapons, and training to other groups who then fight Israel. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. It's like, okay, here's an analogy. Imagine a chess game, but instead of moving your own pieces, you hire someone else to move pieces for you. And if something goes wrong, you can say, oh, that wasn't me, that was them. It gives you a layer of protection.
That's a perfect analogy, exactly like that. So who are these proxy groups that Iran supports? There are 3 main ones that you should know about.
Okay, let's go through them one by one.
First, there is Hezbollah. Hezbollah is a group in Lebanon, the country right next to Israel in the north. Iran helped create Hezbollah in the 1980s. They gave them weapons and money and training. And Hezbollah has fought many wars and conflicts with Israel over the years. They fire rockets into Israel. They have fought major wars in 1996, 1900, and 2006. Hezbollah is considered by many Western countries to be a terrorist organization, but Iran considers them a resistance movement.
Second, there is Hamas. Hamas is a group in Gaza, a small piece of land right next to Israel in the south. Hamas controls Gaza, and they have had many conflicts with Israel. They also receive support from Iran, weapons, money, and training. And Hamas carried out a very terrible attack on Israel on October 7th, 2023. We'll talk more about that a little later.
And third, there are the Houthis. The Houthis are in Yemen, a country in southern Arabia. Iran supports the Houthis too. The Houthis have been firing missiles into Israel and attacking ships in the Red Sea. This is a problem for international trade because many ships have to go through the Red Sea to travel between Europe and Asia.
So what you're saying is Iran has built this whole network of groups around Israel. Groups in the north, groups in the south, groups far away. And these groups all work together, loosely, against Israel. Some people call this the axis of resistance.
That's right. Iran calls it the axis of resistance. They say they are resisting Israeli and American power in the region. But Israel and Western countries say this is a dangerous network of terrorism.
And this network has been one of the biggest reasons why the Iran-Israel conflict has grown so much over the years. Let me tell you about a moment when I really understood this.
Tell me.
So I was in college, and I had this professor, Professor Williams, and he was explaining the Middle East. And he said to the class, think of the Middle East as a chessboard. Every country is a player, and the most powerful players don't always fight directly. They move other pieces. And I remember that so clearly because it helped me understand why things are so complicated. It's not just two countries fighting, it's dozens of groups connected to each other, all making moves on this big, complicated chessboard.
Professor Williams sounds really smart, and that chessboard analogy is perfect. Okay, so now let's talk about maybe the biggest issue in the Iran-Israel conflict today, and that is nuclear weapons.
Ah, yes. This is the topic that makes everyone very nervous. Nuclear weapons. First, let me explain what nuclear weapons are in very simple terms. Nuclear weapons use a process called nuclear fission or nuclear fusion, the splitting or joining of atoms, to create a huge, enormous explosion. These weapons are incredibly destructive. One nuclear bomb can destroy an entire city. The United States used nuclear bombs on Japan at the end of World War II, on the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945. The destruction was absolute. Tens of thousands of people died instantly.
Yes, it was one of the most terrible events in human history. And because of how destructive nuclear weapons are, there is an international treaty, the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, that tries to stop countries from getting nuclear weapons. Many countries have signed this treaty and agreed not to build nuclear weapons.
Now, the big question about Iran is this. Is Iran trying to build a nuclear bomb? Iran has been developing nuclear technology for many years. Iran says it is for peaceful purposes, for energy, for medicine. They say they are not building a bomb. But Israel, the United States, and many other countries are very suspicious. They think Iran wants to build a nuclear weapon.
And from Israel's point of view, this is an existential threat. Now, existential, that's an important word. It means something that threatens your very existence, your survival. So Israel believes that if Iran gets a nuclear bomb, Iran might use it against Israel. And because Israel is a small country, even one nuclear bomb could be catastrophic.
And remember, Iran's leaders have said many times that they want to see Israel gone. The founder of the Islamic Republic, Khomeini, said it. The current supreme leader, Khamenei, has said it. So Israel takes these statements very seriously. They believe these are not just words.
And Israel actually has nuclear weapons too, though Israel never officially confirms this. It's what's called nuclear ambiguity. They don't confirm or deny having nuclear weapons, but most experts believe Israel has around 80 to 90 nuclear warheads.
So you have Iran possibly developing nuclear weapons and Israel already having them, and these two countries deeply hostile to each other. That is a very, very dangerous situation.
And because of the nuclear issue, there have been many international negotiations. In 2015, there was a big deal, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, called the JCPOA, or just the Iran nuclear deal. Under this deal, Iran agreed to limit its nuclear activities in exchange for the lifting of economic sanctions. Those are punishments like trade bans that make it harder for a country to do business.
But in 2018, U.S. President Donald Trump pulled America out of the deal. He said the deal was not strong enough, that it didn't stop Iran from eventually getting a bomb. And after the U.S. pulled out, Iran started expanding its nuclear program again. And since then, talks have been going on, but no new deal has been agreed.
And Israel has always been against the nuclear deal. Israel argued it didn't do enough to stop Iran. Israel actually has a policy of what they call prevention. They will do whatever it takes to stop Iran from getting a nuclear bomb, even military action.
And we've actually seen this in action. There have been mysterious incidents, explosions at Iranian nuclear facilities, scientists being killed. Many people believe Israel is behind these operations. Israel usually doesn't confirm them, but the evidence often points to Israel.
One famous example is the Stuxnet virus. This was a computer virus, a very sophisticated cyber weapon that was discovered around 2010. It attacked the computers that controlled Iran's nuclear centrifuges. Centrifuges are the machines that enrich uranium, an important step in making nuclear material. The virus made the centrifuges spin the wrong way and destroy themselves. Hundreds of centrifuges were damaged, and this set Iran's nuclear program back by years.
And it's believed that Israel and the United States created this virus together. It was one of the first major uses of cyber warfare in history. Like instead of dropping a bomb, you send a computer virus. Welcome to modern warfare.
That just sounds like something out of a movie, but it was real. This conflict has all the elements of a thriller: spies, secret weapons, cyber attacks, proxy wars. It really is like a very complicated and very dangerous movie.
A movie I would definitely watch, but also one I would feel very anxious watching, because the stakes are so real for real people. Now let's talk about the most recent chapter of this conflict, and this is very serious. On October 7th, 2023, something happened that shocked the entire world. Hamas, the group I mentioned earlier, which controls Gaza and which receives support from Iran, launched a massive, brutal attack on Israel. It was the worst attack on Jewish people since the Holocaust in World War II.
It was a horrible thing to see. I remember that day. I woke up and looked at my phone, and I just could not believe what I was reading. Hamas fighters broke through the fence that separates Gaza from Israel. They attacked towns, kibbutzim, those are small farming communities, and a music festival. Approximately 1,200 people were killed. Many of them were civilians, regular people, families, young people at a concert, and around 250 people were taken hostage and brought back to Gaza.
It was absolutely devastating. The people of Israel were in total shock, and the Israeli government responded with a major military operation in Gaza. The war has caused enormous suffering on both sides, with thousands of Palestinian civilians also dying in the conflict.
And here's where Iran comes back into the story. Even though Iran didn't directly carry out the attack, Israel and the United States believe Iran helped train and arm Hamas. Iran has supported Hamas financially and militarily for years.
So Israel sees Iran as being behind this attack, not just Hamas.
And then, in April 2024, something happened that was completely unprecedented. Iran directly attacked Israel for the first time in history. Not through a proxy group. Iran itself launched a direct attack. Over 300 drones, cruise missiles, and ballistic missiles fired at Israel from Iranian territory.
300. That is an unbelievable number. Can you imagine 300 drones and missiles flying through the air? It sounds like a scene from a science fiction movie, but it was real. It happened on April 13-14, 2024.
And what happened? Well, most of the missiles and drones were shot down. Israel has a very advanced air defense system called the Iron Dome, and also other systems called David's Sling and Arrow. And the United States, Britain, France, and Jordan also helped defend Israel, so most of the weapons were intercepted before they landed.
It was actually a remarkable thing to watch, though terrifying. These defense systems shot down around 99% of the incoming drones and missiles. Very minimal damage was done to Israel. A young girl was injured from shrapnel, but thankfully there were no deaths from this attack.
And then, a few days later, Israel responded with a limited strike on Iran. They targeted a radar system near the city of Isfahan. It was a small, symbolic strike, as if to say, we can reach you if we want to. And then both sides kind of stepped back. They decided not to escalate further, for now.
But this was a major moment in history, because for decades, Iran and Israel had been fighting what people call a shadow war, through proxies, through cyber attacks, through assassinations. But April 2024 was the first time they directly attacked each other. It was a crossing of a very significant line.
And since then, tensions remain very high. The war in Gaza continues. Hezbollah in Lebanon and Israel had a major escalation in late 2024, with Israel targeting Hezbollah's leadership and infrastructure. The situation in the region is still very unstable.
It's very difficult and sad to talk about. So many lives affected, so many people suffering, and the world watches, hoping for peace, but peace seems very far away right now.
It does, but I think understanding the history, understanding why and how we got here is an important step, because you can't solve a problem if you don't understand it. And that's why we're talking about this today. Not to take sides, but to understand and to learn.
Okay, so now let's zoom out. Let's take a step back and ask, why does this conflict matter to the rest of the world? If you're living in Brazil, or in Japan, or in Nigeria, why should you care about Iran and Israel?
That's a really important question, and I think the answer has a few parts. First, oil. The Middle East is one of the most important oil-producing regions in the world. Much of the world's oil supply comes from the Middle East, from Saudi Arabia, Iraq, the UAE, Iran. And when there is conflict in the Middle East, oil prices go up. And when oil prices go up, everything gets more expensive. Gas, transportation, food. So it affects everyone's daily life.
Second, nuclear weapons. As we discussed, if Iran develops nuclear weapons, that changes the balance of power in a very dangerous way. It might cause other countries in the region, like Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Egypt, to also try to develop nuclear weapons. That's called nuclear proliferation, and it makes the world much more dangerous.
Third, global security. Terrorist attacks in various countries around the world have sometimes been connected to groups in the Middle East. Groups like Hezbollah have carried out attacks far from the Middle East, in Argentina, in Bulgaria, in other places. So the conflict can come to your country even if you're far away.
And fourth, the internet and social media. Today, conflicts spread in real time on social media. When there's a war or an attack in the Middle East, people all over the world see it immediately on their phones. It affects public opinion. It affects politics. It affects who gets elected, what policies are made. The world is so connected now that nothing is really local anymore.
So this conflict between Iran and Israel is not just a story about two countries in the Middle East. It's a story about religion, about nuclear weapons, about oil, about global security. It touches almost everything.
And it's also a story about people, about regular people who just want to live their lives, Israeli people who want peace and security, Iranian people who want freedom and opportunity, Palestinian people who want a home and dignity, and people in Lebanon, in Yemen, in all these places who are caught in the middle and just want their children to grow up safely.
That's right. And I think we should always remember that when we talk about these conflicts. Behind every political headline, there are human beings, real people with real feelings.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground today, and I want to make sure everyone is taking something valuable home from this conversation. So let's do what we always do. Let's summarize the key things we talked about and give you some practical tips.
Yes, I love this part. Okay, let me start. Tip number 1. To understand any conflict, always learn the history first. A lot of people look at Iran and Israel today and think these countries have always been enemies. But as we learned, that's not true. They used to be friends. History gives context. Context helps understanding.
That's so important, Huba. Tip number 2, understand that countries have interests, not just feelings. Countries make decisions based on what they think is good for them, their security, their economy, their power. That's why you see strange alliances like Israel secretly selling weapons to Iran, because each country was protecting its own interests at that moment.
Tip number 3, learn some key vocabulary. Today you learned several important words. Let me review them for you. Revolution, a sudden and complete change in government. Proxy, someone or something that acts on behalf of another. Sanctions, economic punishments from other countries. Nuclear, related to the energy in the nucleus of an atom, very powerful, very dangerous. Sovereignty, the right of a country to govern itself. Diplomatic relations, official communication between countries.
Excellent vocabulary review, Huba. Tip number 4, follow reliable news sources. If you want to learn more about this conflict, read from multiple sources. Read from different perspectives. Don't just read one newspaper or watch one news channel. Read a little from different places to get a fuller picture. Good sources include the BBC, Al Jazeera, Reuters, the New York Times, Haaretz, which is an Israeli newspaper, and others.
Tip number 5, remember the human side of every story. When you read about conflicts and wars, it's easy to just see numbers. How many missiles, how many soldiers, how many dollars. But always remember that behind every number, there are real people. Families, children, old people, normal human beings who just want to live in peace. Keeping that humanity in mind helps us think more clearly and more compassionately about difficult issues.
I love that tip, Huba. That's maybe the most important one. Tip number 6, and this one is for your English learning specifically. When you read or watch news about complicated topics like this, don't be afraid of words you don't know. Use a dictionary, or better yet, use context clues. Look at the words around the new word and try to guess the meaning. That's a great skill for improving your English.
In tip number 7, practice talking about these topics in English with your friends or language partners. Complex topics are actually great for language practice because they push you to explain things clearly, to use cause and effect language like this happened because, as a result, due to this, all very useful English patterns.
You know, Olivia, before we wrap up, I want to share one more personal story, because I think this topic can feel very abstract, very far away, if you don't have any personal connection to it. But let me tell you about something that happened to me that made it all feel very real.
Please, go ahead. I love it when you get personal.
So a few years ago, I was at a conference, an international conference, with people from many different countries. And I ended up sitting at dinner with 2 people. One was a young Iranian woman, a graduate student studying environmental science. And the other was a young Israeli man who was an engineer. And at first, when they found out where each other was from, you could feel this tension, like the air got a little heavier.
Oh, I can imagine that awkward silence.
Yes,
But then, and I will never forget this, the Israeli man said, "You know what? I've never actually met someone from Iran before. Can I ask you something? What is Tehran like?" And the Iranian woman looked at him for a moment, and then she smiled, and she started talking about Tehran, about the food, about the mountains around the city, about the nightlife, about how young Iranians love music and art, and they ended up talking for 2 hours. 2 hours. And at the end, the Israeli man said, "I want to visit Iran someday." And she said, "And I want to visit Israel." And I just sat there thinking, this is what the world should look like.
Oh, Huba, that gave me chills. That's beautiful. That's what connection looks like. That's what curiosity does. It breaks down walls.
And that's what I hope for this region, for these people, that one day regular people in Iran and Israel can be curious about each other, can talk to each other, can maybe even visit each other's countries. That seems impossible right now, but I believe in the possibility of it.
I believe in it too, and I have my own little story. You know, I have a coworker. She's originally from Israel, grew up in Tel Aviv, and we've had many conversations about this topic. And she told me something that I think is really important. She said, "We just want to live our lives. We want to go to the beach, go to restaurants, see our families. We don't want war. Nobody wants to live in fear." And I thought, that sounds like what any person in any country would say. We all just want to live in peace and raise our families in safety.
And that's the universal truth, isn't it? No matter where you're from, no matter your religion or your politics, almost everyone just wants peace, safety, and a good life. The tragedy is that sometimes the decisions of leaders and governments in history, they take us far away from that simple, shared desire.
Okay, wow. We covered so much today, didn't we? I feel like my brain is full. In a good way, though. Let's do a quick summary for everyone.
Yes, let's recap. So, Iran and Israel are both countries in the Middle East. Iran is a large country, mostly Muslim. Israel is a small country, mostly Jewish. They both have very long, ancient histories.
In 1948, Israel became a country. Iran, under the Shah, actually recognized Israel and had a friendly relationship with it in the 1950s and 60s. The two countries cooperated in many ways, including intelligence sharing.
In 1979, the Iranian Revolution completely changed everything. The Shah was overthrown and Ayatollah Khomeini established the Islamic Republic of Iran. The new government rejected Israel and cut off all ties. Iran began calling for the end of the Israeli state.
In the following decades, Iran built up a network of proxy groups, Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, and the Houthis in Yemen, all of which have fought against Israel at different times.
The nuclear issue has been a central concern, with Iran developing nuclear technology and Israel and the West trying to prevent it from building a nuclear weapon through diplomacy, sanctions, and covert actions like the Stuxnet cyber attack.
In October 2023, Hamas launched a devastating attack on Israel, killing around 1,200 people. This led to a major Israeli military operation in Gaza and a further escalation of tensions with Iran and its allies.
And in April 2024, Iran directly attacked Israel for the first time, launching over 300 drones and missiles. Most were intercepted. Israel responded with a limited strike, but this direct confrontation marked a new dangerous phase in the conflict.
And through all of this, real people in Iran, in Israel, in Lebanon, in Gaza, and in Yemen, and around the world are being affected. Families are separated, lives are lost, futures are uncertain.
Now, for your practice task today, we always give you something to do. Here it is. Write in the comments below what is one thing you learned today that surprised you. Maybe it was that Iran and Israel used to be friends. Maybe it was the Stuxnet virus. Maybe it was the proxy groups. Tell us what surprised you most. We love reading your comments.
Yes, and also try to explain the Iranian Revolution in 2 or 3 sentences to a friend or a family member today. Teaching someone else is one of the best ways to really learn something. If you can explain it to someone else, you truly understand it.
That's such a great idea. Okay, and now for our regular end of episode requests. If this episode helped you learn something new, please give us a thumbs up. It really, really helps our channel, and it only takes 1 second.
And if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. We make new episodes every single week. New topics, new conversations, new English learning. And click the bell icon so you get notified when we post a new video. We would love to have you as part of our community.
Also, if you want to practice your English more, we have previous episodes on many different topics: travel, food, American culture, history, health. Go check them out. They're all designed for A1 and A2 learners. Simple, slow, and natural.
And next week, this is going to be a great one. Next week, we are going to talk about the history of the United States and immigration. How did America become such a diverse country? Who came to America and why? What was it like for early immigrants? We're going to tell some incredible stories. You do not want to miss it.
I'm already excited about next week. Okay, Olivia, any final words for today?
Just thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being curious. Thank you for wanting to learn. Whether you're learning English or learning about the world or both, keep going. Keep asking questions. Keep being curious. The world is a complicated and beautiful place, and understanding it, even a little, makes it better.
Beautifully said, Olivia. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next week. Take care of yourselves, be kind to each other, and remember, learning never stops. Goodbye.
Goodbye, everyone. Stay safe, stay curious, and keep learning. Bye-bye.